Welcome to the Executive Eye by DRI, your lens into the world of executive leadership. Here, we bring you sharp insights, clear perspectives, and focused discussions on the trends shaping the future of business. Join us as we explore what's in view for today's leaders and tomorrow's innovators.
Hello and welcome to the Executive Eye, a podcast from Direct Recruiters, Inc., where we explore the people, strategies, and experiences shaping today's recruiting and executive search industry. I'm your host, Maggie Price, and today's episode is called What Makes a Recruiter Successful? Lessons from a Mentor. Today we are taking a closer look at the development process through a real mentor and mentee relationship at Direct Recruiters. Joining me today are Steve Benson and Alexis Hirsch. Steve will share his perspective as an experienced recruiter and mentor, including what he looks for in a new recruiter, how he provides feedback, and how he decides when to offer guidance and when to encourage independence. Alexis will also share what entering the recruiting profession was really like, some of the challenges she faced early on, and how mentorship has helped her develop greater confidence and ability. Steve and Alexis, thank you so much for joining me today.
Great to be here. Thanks, Maggie.
So just to begin, could each of you briefly introduce yourself and explain your role at Direct Recruiters?
Sure. So my name's Steve Benson. I've been with Direct Recruiters now almost 9 years. In August it'll be. It's gone by quickly. So my role has evolved over the years, but currently I'm a partner in Direct Recruiters and the recruiting director for the healthcare technology practice. And so I run my own desk running searches for various different roles, and then also work with our team of recruiters like Alexis here and help them in their day-to-day and long-term career as well.
Hello, I'm Alexis. I've been at Direct Recruiters for a little over a year now, and I'm a recruiter on the health tech team. So I spend my day-to-day working mostly with sales candidates and clients hiring for sales positions. Steve is a great leader on my team, and I'm happy to have had his mentorship for over the past year.
Awesome. So just to begin, I have a few questions. Steve, I'm going to start with you. How long have you worked in recruiting, and what industry or practices area do you currently support?
Sure. So I've been doing this now for about 12 years. So I had about 3 years of recruiting experience before joining Direct Recruiters. And as I mentioned, on the healthcare technology practice, and basically what that means is any type of software or kind of software adjacent tech-enabled services that is sold into healthcare. So that could be hospitals, doctors' offices. It could even be on the health insurance or health plan side of the equation. We do a little bit of direct-to-consumer, so maybe a mobile app or something that you would download yourself. And then also in the life sciences, kind of biotechnology, biopharma arena as well.
Awesome. And what attracted you to recruiting in the first place?
I didn't know what I wanted to do. I needed a job. No. I went to school to be a teacher, and quickly decided I didn't see myself doing that for 30 plus years. And so fell in to recruiting, and frankly saw a lot of parallels between kind of the coaching and teaching relationship, and kind of how we ended up here in this mentor-mentee relationship as well. But I think if I had to boil it down, I would say, no 2 days are the same. Talking with different people, different companies, it's really impossible to kind of know everything there is about the healthcare industry as well, and technology and so on and so forth. So yeah, just the curiosity of learning, about people, their career, helping them go where they want to go, and just no 2 days being the same, really kept me showing up for these past 12 years.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. So my next question is for Alexis. Could you tell me a little bit about your position and how you first became interested in recruiting?
Yeah, for sure. So, this position is mostly, like I said, I'm mostly focused on, I would say, sales roles, some customer success positions. If I'm going a little outside my range sometimes, maybe that includes marketing, but anything really focused within the health tech world. But my position, I'm connecting with candidates on a daily basis, really deep diving into either growing their career or what's best fit for them and their next steps, and building those long-term relationships in the health tech space. And then also, working on the client side as well, managing their needs, kind of being that middleman and managing everyone's needs to make it best fit for everyone within their professional and career development world.
Yeah, that's awesome. Those were great answers. Thank you. So now that our listeners know a little bit more about both of you, I would like to go back to the beginning and talk about what it is actually like to enter the recruiting profession. So, Alexis, before you started, what did you expect recruiting to be like?
So before I started here, I worked for a firm and I was doing recruiting and finance and accounting. Um, so that was like my first real world recruiting firm job, which was great. But before that, I came from internships that were more focused on internal recruiting or being like a internal TA. So it was a little bit different of a perspective. I think because of those internships, I had more of what it's like from an internal side of things. So, managing a pipeline, focusing maybe on just internal positions, having a very narrow pathway into just hiring for one specific company. So, I think I had more of a narrow vision and tunnel in that regard, but coming into recruiting, it was very eye-opening. There's a ton of, working for DRI, working for my previous firm, there's a ton of moving pieces and parts. There's a ton of, different clients that you have to manage and realizing that, no one company is the same and no one client is the same or has the same needs or values.
Yeah, just kind of touching on what you said about like, just every piece and part, like when you first started, was there anything that you felt like a little uncomfortable doing or it was a little unexpected?
Yeah, so coming into direct recruiters, I've never worked in the health tech space before. So that was, a big learning curve for me. It sounded interesting when I was looking at the role and learning about the position and going through the interview process. But as far as, what this field really entails, it was a pleasant surprise. It's so interesting. There's always a lot of change going on, staying up to market and knowledge and market knowledge too, especially with all this AI technology. So it was a pleasant surprise. I found it to be even more so interesting than I ever thought.
Yeah, that's awesome. So when you first started, did you understand what made someone successful in recruiting, or did you kind of come to understand that gradually?
Yeah, when I first started here, I think I held a very competitive position before it in recruiting. So, numbers and billings were very cutthroat there. So it was held to high standards. So, putting in the activity, building the relationships. I came into this role knowing that was essential for building a long-term career and a successful career here. It was just tailoring it to really this industry, and I think everyone has a different recruiting style. So coming here and getting mentorship from people like Steve, from Mike, it took me really to the next step, and I, hope to continue to see other people's recruiting styles and the way they work and continue to get mentorship from Steve. So I think there's always learning that I can do
Okay,
within the space.
that's awesome. So if you don't mind, could you perhaps share an early mistake or a difficult moment that maybe taught you a lesson in your early days of recruiting?
Yeah, for sure. So I think, one of the things that's interesting about recruiting is that, you're not just selling an object, a widget, a gadget. So, you hear one thing from a person and something's going really, really well. And, I had a candidate that I was actually, fully on board to accept. I thought everything was good, move on. They're going to get the offer letter. They're going to sign. And everything's going to go great. Well, people are really, really dynamic, of course. So, it's not just an easy line signed on the paper, deal done, deal closed. So, it was kind of an eye-opening experience in this type of sale and this type of close that, we're dealing with dynamic people that have different needs and life events and circumstances that come up. So I think that was eye-opening in terms of like being best prepared for that, like learning that, this is not just a easy follow the steps and everything falls into place type of industry. Like I said, life events happen and really learning how to navigate through those situations and being best prepared. Where do we go from here if someone all of a sudden has a family event and it's not a good time for them to change jobs? And how do I manage my clients' expectations?
Yeah, I feel like it would just be a lot to juggle, and it's definitely a people person job. So I've definitely learned a lot more about recruiting just being an intern, but it's very interesting. Just kind of to switch gears, now I have some questions for Steve. So, Steve, were there any qualities that you noticed early on that suggested that Alexis had potential to become a successful recruiter?
Yeah, I think there are many, but if I narrowed it down, I would say she's very just her personality is very infectious, right? And you said something about being a people person. It's funny. I had someone very early in my career call me out in an interview, not here at Direct Recruiters, but at a different company. I said, "Yeah, I'm a people person, right?" And they said, "That's what everybody says." So, I think there is an aspect of that. You do have to have I wouldn't say like Alexis has an infectious personality. People want to be around her. Like she's very positive. Like we have a
Thank
ton of fun together, right? And I think that is certainly when you're dealing with something as large as like changing, careers, right? Changing jobs is not only impacts them, impacts their family, but I think being curious, right, and not being stagnant, right? Like just being like accepting the status quo, or yeah, everything is just going along. I think she is very curious and has that just kind of force of personality where I'm going to get everybody together and we're going to get this done. And so I think that is something that you cannot teach, you just have. And so that's something certainly that has aided, among other things, Alexis and her early success.
you very much.
So my next question kind of ties into your answer a little bit, but from your experience, what do successful recruiters consistently do differently?
Just show up. I think it can be such a roller coaster because again, you are dealing with people, right? And some people are having good days, bad days, circumstances change, and so I always equate it to baseball. The best players in the game are only successful, a very small amount of the time, and so you can do everything right and still lose in this business, and that can be very mentally challenging for folks, right? And so keeping that even keel and showing up and putting in the work, and ultimately, you will be successful. And I think too, the coachability is huge, at least for our team and the way that I like to go about, the mentor-mentee relationship. I can't be there over your shoulder doing everything for you. But if you can't take coaching or you can't change things, you can't learn and evolve, then I have a hard time, being able to help, because again, can't pick up the phone for you or do your day to day for you. So.
Yeah. So my next question is for Alexis. So now that you have gained more experience, what differences do you notice between simply completing recruiting tasks and working with a clearer purpose?
I think my biggest difference is just the confidence in on the phones too. So, when I get a new client, when I work on a new project, I feel like before it was a learning curve. I really had to do a deep dive into the industry, into the company, and now, I have these conversations with clients and intake calls, and I understand. I understand their industry, I understand their competitors. who, they're selling into, what type of person would be beneficial for this role, and even bringing new ideas to the table about, they might have one idea of what this candidate could look like on paper, and, I might be able to offer a little bit different insight just from previous experiences. Um, so I think that just comes with time and conversation and being okay with the uncomfortable and the unknown, and just asking those questions, spending the extra time on the phone to learn about someone, and learn about their career path, and it takes time, but spending that extra time to do market research and um, industry research, what's going on in the AI world and within health tech. So that was kind of, something that comes a little bit easier to me now. But still, like, there's never on it's never ending learning and knowledge, and it's something that's very important to keep up with, and understand where the industry is going.
Yeah, kind of speaking on just like the industry knowledge that, you guys have both touched on. Alexis, do you feel that candidates respond differently when they can tell that a recruiter truly understands their industry and isn't just looking for a placement?
100%, 100%. So that, I mean, it comes off at the beginning as someone might feel like, oh, I'm just a piece of a deal, I'm a piece of a sale, a very transactional relationship. But when you actually have the confidence and you understand, and the conversation becomes conversational instead of more so transactional, it becomes, a long-term beneficial relationship for both sides. I can take more of a mentor, career coach approach, and not just feel like, oh, I'm just selling you on this one role, which, is makes this industry really, really fun and exciting when you start building those relationships, and you take, you turn away from just making it transactional and reading off of a job description and finding, ways that this candidate checks the boxes. So that's something that I really do like about this career path in this industry, is as soon as you gain this confidence and abilities to kind of verge away from, okay, is this candidate just checking off the boxes? It's really fun building those long-term relationships.
That's awesome. So I have a few questions for the both of you now. Steve, we'll start with you. So recruiting is sometimes viewed as more of like a sales focused career. Why is listening just as important as like speaking or selling?
It's a great question. Look, I think going back to the curiosity aspect of this, and I think Alexis nailed it. Ultimately, yes, we make a living by filling specific roles for specific clients, and they pay us well to do that. But I think what makes at least recruiting in our world very unique is, at the same time, we are building relationships, with candidates in the market, right? And as they go through their career. And so ultimately, you're never going to, quote unquote, sell somebody on taking a role that doesn't make sense for them, doesn't make sense for their family, doesn't make sense, today, tomorrow, next week, etc. And so catching someone kind of in a vacuum as far as where they're at in their career, looking forward to where they want to go, how does this help you now? How does this help you a year from now, 3 years from now, etc. Taking that long-term approach, both for the candidate as well as for our clients, is ultimately, I think what makes us not only successful, but it's the only way I know how to do it. And so that, I think, is a huge difference from Alexis's point, where you're just checking boxes and selling someone on, hey, take this job tomorrow. It's going to be great.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, my one of my biggest lessons that I've learned early on, and when I was growing up, and just, you know, the value of listening to people, and just something that my dad always taught me too, was that you have two ears and one mouth. So, and sometimes, there's a reason for that too. I'm a true believer that you get just as much or even more out of listening and understanding than just speaking what's on your mind. I have a very fast-paced go 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 mind, and I can talk and talk and talk and not be quiet. But for me, sometimes I have to take a step back and refocus and sit back, take it all in, and then process and speak. And that's something that I work on. I think socially I'm a very talkative. They say like this and yap, whatever the go-to terms are nowadays that are trending. But in this career, I think listening, understanding has a lot of value.
Yeah. So I have another question for both of you. Rejection and unexpected changes are unavoidable in recruiting. So candidates may stop responding, clients may change their hiring plans, searches may be placed on hold, and offers, might be declined. So how should a successful recruiter respond when something does not go according to plan?
Good. To your point, things often don't go to plan. And so I think your ability to not only accept that, but learn from it and offer a different path moving forward, whether that's for the client, it's for the candidate, or even just how we're approaching things, from an internal perspective, I think is crucial. Alexis will tell you one of the first things I tell everybody that joins our team, like, I want you to fail fast. It doesn't mean I want you to absolutely fail at everything and hate your life every day of the week, but the quicker you fail, the faster you will learn. And so that is a core tenet of not only our team, but I think the industry as a whole. And look, I think going back to that mental fortitude and mentality of, hey, things are going to go sideways. They are going to change. We're going to fail. That is just part of everyday life. But especially in the recruiting field, it's essential. To having success long term, not just worrying about the day to day, week to week, month to month, year to year. If you want to have longevity in this business, being comfortable with failure and growth is a key thing.
Scream, cry, and no, I'm kidding. And think about where you should take your career next. No, kidding, totally kidding. But like Steve said, like fail fast. That was crazy to me. That sounded crazy. Fail fast, keep failing, like do it. But that was some of the most valuable advice that I've heard. And it kind of took that pressure off of me. Like I think humans just innately one of the biggest reasons we don't like to do things is because the fear of failure. So coming in with Steve's perspective of failing fast, that took that edge of stress and anxiety off of me. And it made me want to try. It made me want to go get after things, and it made me feel like it's okay if I fail. Like, where am I going to pick back up? And it's so true. Some of the biggest learning experiences, some of the biggest opportunities honestly came from what I saw as a failure. Um, it's you do something a few times in a row, it starts becoming a habit and a pattern, but I think the biggest takeaway from failing is understanding like the why behind it, the reasoning, what happened, where can I go next, what happens if this situation comes up again, and ensuring that when it does, because it's going to, that light bulb goes off and that you track back to that time and that learning experience that you had in the first or even second failure.
Yeah, so just kind of thinking of it more as like a learning curve rather than taking it as a
Hmm.
failure. Yeah, okay. Awesome.
Exactly.
So I would love to pivot and kind of just focus on your guys' mentor-mentee relationship. So how often do you guys meet or call or text or whatever in a week? Like how often are you guys in communication in the span of a week?
Pretty consistent, maybe more than Alexis would like at this point. No, it's I think
No, I
we've
love it.
progressed over the past year where we used to meet 30 minutes once a week consistently, and then constantly calling and texting and providing kind of that on the fly feedback. And again, Alexis very quickly was able to come up to speed, and I gave her more room to fly, right? So I'd say today, we're probably talking a couple times a week, but more informally, and then once every few weeks, more intentionally. meeting and talking about what's going on. But she's graduated from the mandatory. We got to sit down and talk for 30 a week, and now it's more working in the business versus kind of on the business, if you
Yeah, so Stephen, how do you know when to step in and provide an answer and when to allow Alexis to maybe like work through a problem on her own?
difficult. It's challenging, especially in a remote environment, right? Where she's sitting where she is, I'm sitting where I am, and I can't hear her on the phone, she doesn't hear me on the phone, right? And we're digesting things maybe at different times, in different ways, right? Could be communication via email, text, a phone call, a Teams meeting, video call, etc. And so, yeah, I would say there's no like clear answer, Maggie, right? Sometimes it's just a feel thing. Sometimes it's I've got a couple minutes now, and so we can talk about it. And other times it's driven by the urgency of maybe our client, maybe our candidate, or maybe Alexis calling me, hey, I need your help. We got to talk about this. So, or vice versa, me going, hey, we need to talk about this. So there's no clear way. I would say it just depends on the situation and frankly, what's going on with either of us, where we're at in our day, because it can be you get pulled in a lot of different directions.
Yeah, fair enough. So Alexis, in which area do you believe that you have grown the most since beginning your recruiting career?
The most. I would say, understanding understanding what it takes to be successful. I think there's a lot of different ways. People have a lot of different styles, but really defining that for myself and finding my own style and my own way. It's not just like I'm not Steve, Steve's not me. There's certain things that of course I can pick up on that he does that might work for myself, but really it's an individualized kind of art. Steve likes that. I've heard Steve called it an art before. So I've taken that personally and I'm like, okay, what's my art? What am I good at? Like what do I enjoy? What do I feel comfortable in? Like what phrases am I picking up from someone else that just doesn't feel natural for me? So it's understanding like what's not my style and what is, and really finding that and running with it. So that's something that I've kind of, it's that I continue to work on. But finding my style, finding my pace, and what works best for me, navigating that art, as some people like to call it, um, is something that is, it's ongoing that I feel like I'm getting a little bit more comfortable with and better with as I'm growing my career here.
I think Maggie too. Just to add on to that, speaking of art, there's an art to knowing when to step in and quote unquote save something, right? Or I don't know, it's hard. I don't want Alexis to fail. I don't want us to fail, right? I don't want our client to fail, etc., or our candidates that we work with. And so, but there is certainly an art to getting out of the way. I know early in my career, I was very micromanaged, and it was like, do this, and so it didn't allow me to really scale my career. The 3 years before coming to direct recruiters, and even in my early days, just because of the way our team was set up at that moment, it was, push everything, like help, help, I don't know what to do next. And so I think the challenge is figuring out how much to let people learn on their own, right? And let them maybe experience the situation and then come in afterwards, right? And debrief on what could we have done differently. But perfect scenario, you still win, everything goes well, but there's little learnings that you can take away from every interaction.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and Steve's the first person to come in and ask what he can do, be the first person to step in, where can I help? What do you need? And he does a really good job of having that outside perspective of, sitting back sometimes and evaluating and navigating and thinking of these like areas of improvement that might not have not even ever passed through my mind. And, even like he said, even the situations that on paper look like they went perfect and smooth and all is well, has an exceptional eye for identifying those areas that like, this was great and being complimentary, but, seeing those areas, you're right. Like and it's always like, I would have never noticed that, like that is his specific art that he's, I would say perfected. Maybe that's the
I don't know
teacher in
about perfective, but it's
close.
ongoing.
It's ongoing, but maybe that's the teacher in you, like
It's a lifelong learner.
So, kind of on that note, Steve, what do you think makes an effective mentor or coach?
I think, Alexis touched on this earlier, and I think it's crucial that not only our team's success, DRI's success, but also just success in general in the recruiting world. Um, it's more art than science, as we've also talked about. The way I do it doesn't, just because I've been successful doesn't mean it'll work for Alexis, right? And it'll make her successful. And so I think from a coach or a mentor perspective, you have to be comfortable, hey, this is how I think about it. This is how I do it. But that don't take it for, as gospel, right? What do you think? Push back. I think creating that environment where people feel comfortable to challenge and to push back, and to try different things and be okay with when they don't work out, or vice versa. If it does work out, that opens my perspective to something I maybe couldn't have, wouldn't have thought of, couldn't have thought of, etc. If you're kind of closed off to, well, this is how we've always done it, right? Or this is how it works for me. It may work differently for Alexis, and so I think that's the exciting thing about recruiting, is there's no one way to do it, and if you don't bring your own personality into it, like people will feel that and they'll reject that. So you have to unequivocally be yourself. But I think creating that environment, and also speaking back to like the curiosity and the lifelong learner aspect, for me, I get much more out of it, I think, than anybody I mentor, just in terms of being able to talk through things, learn about how did you see this situation, or what do you think about this, and just seeing people grow and learn and build that confidence as well, is what gets me out of bed and keeps me coming back. So
That's awesome. I love that. So what are some qualities or things that you have seen improvements made by Alexis, or like what are some things that you've noticed about Alexis that she's improved upon?
keep it coming.
yeah, no, or look, I think Alexis is unique because a lot of times when people come into this field, they may not have a personal confidence, right, in their own abilities, knowledge. Just like, again, can be a scary thing. We're calling people who we've never met, and talking to them about their career, their lives, their compensation, and getting them to talk to other strangers about potentially, changing big changes in their career and their lives, and their livelihood. And so I think, Alexis doesn't have that problem. She's able to talk to you put her in a room, she's going to learn everybody's name and what makes them tick, right? And so that's just a natural ability, and just, her being curious. And so I think we've actually gone the opposite way, and it's almost like, let's pull her back a little bit, right? Like, let's let's get her a little bit more focused on, okay, I think she is an optimist in terms of, well, why wouldn't this work, right? And why wouldn't you be interested in this company and this opportunity and this candidate and what they bring to the table, right? And I think something that's very crucial for us is, yes, that is, a component of it, but the more you do this role, you're looking for more, why won't this work, right? Versus why will this work? And sometimes that's difficult, right? Especially if you have a very just natural, everything is great and it's going to work out and I love everybody and it's all hunky dory. And so, and it's not a cynical thing or being negative. It's just comes with, reps, and ultimately our job is this has got to be a win-win, right? For both parties, for it to ultimately be successful. And so, long story short, I think Alexis has grown, not only as her confidence in the understanding the business and kind of how things work, she has gotten better at looking for okay, why wouldn't this work, or where are the gaps? But also has not lost the the
Craziness.
yeah, she's not jaded, she's not cynical, she's not looking for, oh, this is not going to work out. It's very, very positive, which again is infectious, and creates a great, not only environment for us, right? It makes it easy for us in terms of working with her, and being a, kind of a mentor for her. But I think that's the biggest thing that I've seen. And also just uh, this job is hard. You get pulled in a lot of different directions, and so I think organization has been a big focus for Alexis as well, so that she can maximize. We all have the same amount of time in a day, and you could spend all day long talking to people and learning about them, and having great conversations, but ultimately, not moving anything forward. And so her ability to maintain that and continue to get better at the craft and the industry and learning, but also making things happen and pushing things forward is ultimately how you will be successful. So
That's awesome. I love that answer. That was perfect.
Thank you.
So my next question is for both of you. So what type of questions do you think that new recruiters should be asking their mentors or their coaches, or like what should they have at the top of their mind to be, asking people that are familiar with the industry?
I think this goes down to a little bit. It's difficult in a remote environment more so, but and sometimes people are like, oh, he comes off as, am I overstepping? Am I being annoying? But asking to sit in on those conversations, asking to shadow, asking, to be a part of something. I think going back to probably a previous answer, but hearing people's, just terms that they use, phrases, how they navigate through a difficult conversation, how they ask those we're talking about people's money, about, their finances, their medical benefits, how this change is going to impact their family. So, hearing how people navigate through those difficult conversations, it brings a lot of value. So coming into the role super curious, not being afraid to ask, like, can I sit in on this call? Can I shadow you? Can I, after a call, can we debrief this? People love to help mostly. They love to add value. I think it's sometimes just as valuable for the person that takes the time to help someone else. It makes them take a step back and learn, and, you know, make it all make sense in their head. So that's one of the things that kind of was built into our training, I think, shadowing. But, looking back, I think if I had to change something, it would really be taking advantage of the talent that I already had on this team. Um, from all the other people that Steve and Mike and the rest of the leadership team really worked hard on bringing in, and they all, have been brought on this team for specific reasons and, specific values and insights that they could add to this team. So taking the time to learn from people, and taking initiative, I think there's training that's going to be given to you or mandatory, but really taking it into your own hands is going to be essential.
yeah, I mean, I think Alexis nailed it. I think back to early in my career, and again, certainly maybe I was you know because of the environments I was in and the people, I was afraid to look stupid, right? Or I didn't want to bother them. I didn't want to ask a question, right? I kind of wanted to observe from afar and just let the, okay, I did what I was required to do, and now here I'm handing it to you, right? Because if you color outside the lines a little bit, maybe maybe you don't you don't have the you don't come across the way that you want to or you think you should be perceived as, right? And so that ability to not only, yeah, hey, why'd you do it that way, right? Or hey, yeah, we this worked out, but why could have maybe easily gone the other way, right? Being curious about and frankly over communicating, right? I think people, especially in remote environments, we in all of our candidates that we work with, least personally, I preach like, hey, make sure you're over communicating that first 30, 60, 90 days, because the human assumption is if I'm not hearing from you, it's either A, you know what you're doing, or B, you're not doing anything. You're not working. And so I think having the bravery to ask questions and to show your vulnerability early and often, right? And then to take the other side of that coin, start to figure out, okay, I've already asked this question. I should have an answer, right? Or I should have at least an opinion. Or maybe I asked this person, let me go ask this person. Or, hey, this person is really great at when I ask questions, giving me answers and talking through it. But this person over here would rather show me, right? Or shadow, or, they don't like to get into the what could have been or what should have been type of scenario. And so, a little bit of that emotional intelligence, figuring out who to go to, how to approach them. Do I come with questions? Do I come with, instead of a question, it may be, hey, what if I did this, right? Come with a solution. Hey, should I do A or should I do B? Once you've kind of built that relationship and established kind of the background. Because if you keep asking the same question, it's, people go, at least with kids, it's pretty frustrating, and same with adults, right? And so I think showing that continued progression is important, but yeah, early and often asking questions is crucial. I would say there's no specific questions in particular, but just being willing to ask and understand, and not just taking it as, okay, well, that worked out, I guess we did everything, right, or that was wrong and I don't want to talk about it, we failed and let's forget about it. And, sometimes there are those situations, but often you can learn more, as we've discussed, from a failure than a victory per se. So.
Yeah. Well, thank you both. Okay, I have one final question for you. So, after everything that you've experienced in your careers and through this mentorship, what does recruiter success mean to each of you today? And Alexis, we can start with you.
Recruiter success. There's a lot of different things that like go into success. But one, you know, I think the biggest thing is, are you enjoying what you're doing? Do you feel passionate about what you're doing? Do you see this as a lifelong career? And like one of the things that I feel most proud and successful about is that like I'm here at Direct Recruiters, and I could see myself here until retirement. So that to me is like my personal foundation of success. Like every day I have that intrinsic motivation. I know I'm in the right job that's getting me out of bed, that's making me excited, that, you know, I enjoy my work environment. I'm excited about working with my coworkers. And that, you know, I'm not closing my laptop at the end of the day and being like, oh, I have to wake up and do this again tomorrow. Like I see this as a huge opportunity, as, you know, something I'm proud of when I talk to people, and that I have that natural excitement about. So that's kind of like my take on, hey, I found a career that's, you know, I feel that motivation and pride in. And that's, you know, something I feel like is success intrinsically. But, you know, success, I would say in other terms of recruiting is, are you reaching a big part of this? Are you reaching your financial goals? Are you reaching your numbers? You can break it down to daily metrics, weekly metrics, quarterly metrics, monthly, whatever you do, whatever you can. It's at the end of the game, it is a little bit of a numbers game, and that's okay. I think that's part of the fun. That's part of, you know, why people with an entrepreneurial mindset go into this business. So for me, that's motivating as well. I like having those numbers and those goals to work towards, and I do get that sense of its success when I get to those numbers. You know, on a daily basis, if I have enough phone time, if I'm talking to enough people, if I, you know, have enough candidates to present to my clients, that's just simple success that I can see in numbers and on paper. And then, you know, the financial success that comes with this career, having those goals and you know, maybe when I'm coming off of just in general, maybe I want to buy a house one day. Maybe I want to be able to, you know, pay for my kids' college one day, or go on this big family vacation, and or you know, being able to have that financial relief just mentally, like, okay, we can live comfortably, we could take I could take care of my family if there's an emergency, whatever that success looks like in financial terms or just in day-to-day life, that can be broken down by numbers and, you know, maintaining that and reaching that sense of financial peace too.
I would say, I've been told, and you hear it often around here, there's no harder job, but no better career. And I think that's very true. And so it makes me think of, I told you I was in recruiting for 3 years before coming to Direct Recruiters, and now I'll be here, 9 years in August. And so to me, success is a couple things. One is just finding that place where, not only can you be successful, to Alexis's point, financially, but also just feel that you're with a group of people that you enjoy working with, right? You enjoy the work itself, keeps you coming back for more. The fact that I've been in a job for 9 years, to me, if I think back to like before I joined here, it was, I was at somewhere a year and a half, 2 years, right? And even in today's world where the world spins a little faster, like the fact that I haven't thought about changing jobs, in probably about 8.5 years, 6 months in, I'm still learning and figuring out, et cetera, but finding that professional home is certainly something that it's just as you buy a house, as you have kids, as you have to pay for college or what have you, that is just one less thing to worry about. And so I think that's to me that's what success partly looks like, and the financial and the money, right, will come if you can find, I think, that right place where you belong, right, and where you can thrive and not just stick around and clock in, clock out, cash a paycheck, where you can continue to grow and thrive, right, and find new challenges. And I think on the other side of that, to me, success long term in this career is building those relationships, right? When I get that call from a candidate who maybe I placed in a job 3, 4, 5 years ago, and they want to think about what's next, or somebody I've worked with and they've gone on in their career and now they need to hire people at their new home. To me, there's no better feeling of success of talking to those people. Hey, what's going on? How's your family? How has that grown and evolved? What are the cool and interesting things that you guys are doing that you've been able to do because of, again, the financial success of career progression? And so having those long-term relationships and adding to those, right, every single day, to me, ultimately is the sign of a very successful recruiting career.
Yeah, that's awesome. I loved both of those answers. Thank you guys so much. Steve and Alexis, thank you for sharing your experiences and your lessons, and for sharing an honest look at what recruiter development really looks like. And thank you to everyone listening to this episode of The Executive Eye, a podcast from Direct Recruiters. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to The Executive Eye by DRI. Stay connected with us for more insights on leadership and industry trends. Follow The Executive Eye on LinkedIn or visit our website at directrecruiters.com. Until next time, keep your eye on executive leadership.